Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy right here, man. It's MMA Reloaded. Welcome to episode 3 of MMA Reloaded Real Talk, the podcast here on YouTube, also on Instagram, also not on Instagram, sorry, on Facebook, folks. You can follow some clip, you can watch the podcast here on Facebook as well. Folks, episode 3, I want to just thank everyone for tuning in to our last episode 2, featuring WEC and UFC veteran Anthony Andrew. Today, what we do is we go from a veteran to one of the youngest, brightest, a guy, in my opinion, could be a future UFC champ. He is the number 1 in New Mexico. He is Jerome Renegade Rivera, and the Renegade will be joining us soon. Follow some clip. You can watch the podcast here on Facebook as well. Folks, episode 3, I want to just thank everyone for tuning in. So, folks, yeah, like I was saying, Renegade will be joining us here soon in the next 5 minutes. But I just want to thank everyone for joining in on our last session with Anthony Andrew, getting such a good response and such a good reaction from that. Thank you so much to everyone. Now, just like Anthony, Jerome Rivera is young. He's 24 years old, 9-2 in the US and 9-2 in his pro career. And in my opinion, watching this guy fight is like watching a mixture of Anthony Pettis fight and Anthony Pettis and, let's say, the intensity of Calvin Guitar. You mix those two guys in and you get Jerome Renegade Rivera. Now, secondly, folks, before you say anything, we are well aware of our technical issues, of our poor visual. But in my opinion, folks, it's one of those things that just need to just fix up on a little bit, you know what I mean? So, folks, while we wait for Renegade, you know what? Just want to give you a bit extra on him. 9-2, like I said, his pro career, in my opinion, yeah, folks, you look at fresh blood, you look at new generation, you look at next generation, you look at however you want to classify that category of fighters. That's exactly my point here on this podcast, is to get into the nitty gritty with veterans and with the new breed. So I'm glad that Jerome Rivera could join us here today. He will be here in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So sit tight and hold tight, And while we wait for Jerome Rivera, folks, we are just a few short weeks away from UFC 249, the super card. It's a bad motherfucking card, I'll tell you that, man. All day, every day, I would watch that shit whenever, wherever. It's one of those things that you can't really put your finger on, but it's going to be phenomenal. So, folks, we wait for Jerome Rivera to join up. Folks, by the end of this podcast, you will know who Jerome Rivera is. And so, folks, we look forward to having this young man here with us today. Okay. You know what, folks? If you go back and watch episode 2 with Anthony Kawani, you will see um, sort of like the inner thinking of a veteran. You'll see that he admits about, I didn't take him seriously, but I could have, and I should have, and you could have said that, with Anthony, you had sort of like a mature outlook, combined with a modern outlook on the issues in mixed martial arts. Now, folks, it's every MMA Reloaded podcast comes with a cliffhanger. We leave it on a hook. Who's joining, who's the guest. And today I am actually glad, I'm proud that Jerome Rivera is a guest here on the pod. He is a guy who I have watched in Legacy. And he will be on Dana White's Contender Series Season 4. And folks, we will touch on that with Jerome. We will touch on a lot of things with Jerome Rivera because, bro, he's down to talk MMA. He's a young kid. He's hungry. He's eager to learn, And it's going to be it's going to be a real fun conversation, man. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm sure he is too. And see if Jerome is through. Not yet. Folks, it's cool. I'm cool. Folks, it's just got to sit back and wait it out. You know what I mean? Just had to download a Zoom. Wow. Folks, while we wait for Jerome, I want to thank everyone for supporting this podcast. I'm not just saying that's a stall. While we wait for Jerome, we have a lot of AV issues that I can sort out, and I know that I ain't a guy to talk about. I ain't a guy to hide behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So I know, and I will get this fixed, and I will bring you guys the best possible. Jerome is here. Renegade, what's going on, brother? Can you hear me, bro? Can you hear me, bro? What's going on, man? I can't hear you, man. I can't hear you, bro. Yo. Okay, yeah, man. What's going on, Jerome? How's it going, brother?
I'm doing good, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. It's good to finally get you on the podcast, bro. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a young breed, next generation, here on the podcast and trying to get your view, man. I had a veteran on last episode. So, bro, I wanna just get your view, man. I wanna get people to know who you are, if they don't know already. 9-2, 24 years old, bro. You're right in the prime, man. You already got fans buzzing, man. You got fans buzzing about your fighting style and about your performances. Win or lose, bro, I think you are a force to be reckoned with going into the Contender Series this year, man. How do you feel right now, man, in your career?
It's awesome, and yeah, thanks again for having me on. It's cool that you're doing this, like you said, so people can kind of get to know who we are outside of just seeing us fight in the cage. But yeah, where I'm at in my career right now, it's so awesome. Like, I've worked so hard to get here. So many tough fights. I went from fighting in little bars in Texas to weighing in literally like next to just like a little small bar. I don't know. I feel like I've came a long way. I put in a lot of work, and it's nice to hear people know who I am a little bit and see me fight in LFA and see me come up in some of these articles as a up and coming prospect. It's really something me and my coach have been shooting for from day one. And I always envisioned it, but to have it actually happen, people starting to know who I am, is pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Amen to that, bro. Amen to that, man. And that's why I did the post on Instagram, because I want, not only for the Contender Series, bro, but I want people to know that there's a whole other life outside the UFC. There's different promotions. There's guys who are being built up from the ground, bro. Yeah, to be rooted as the next world champs. And bro, that brings me to my next question, Renegade. You know what? You're competing in Legacy right now, and to me, Legacy is establishing the next breed. That's what it's always done, bro. Is be the future of mixed martial arts, and competing in that mosh pit of studs, bro. You know, like Brandon Royval and all the other guys. How do you feel, bro? How do you feel your position is in that promotion right now, being with all them other stud athletes, bro?
I'm like always a hard critic on myself. Like, every time I watch myself fight, I'm like, damn, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. But I feel like I'm in a really good spot with LFA. After my first fight with them, I fought that fight at 135 pounds. And then that following fight, they gave me a title shot at 125, and they had never even seen me fight at 125. So, I was pretty stoked by that. And then, they had offered me that second title shot with Brandon in October last year. So I feel like they like what I do. They think I'm an exciting fighter. I lost that fight against Roberto Sanchez when I fought for the title. And then, unfortunately, I lost the fight against Brandon. But I feel like I came back and put on another exciting fight in my last one against Kendrick Latchman. And I just signed another 3-fight contract right before that. So I have 2 more fights on contract with them. And they have it in the clause to let me go fight on Contender Series. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to the future. Like you said, lose or draw. I'm going to learn from this next fight, and I may get shot to the UFC after. I might have more fights at Legacy, but either way, I'm just going to keep getting better and better. And, yeah, I'm going to definitely be a force to reckon with, for sure.
Oh, man. Yeah, for sure. And that brings me to my next, bro. You mentioned the fight with Brandon. LFA 39, bro. And to me, I was watching that fight back, man. And to me, bro, you came out fire. You came out on fire, bro. And you dislocated your arm or your elbow coming in. And that exchange, talk us through what happened, man. Could you remember what happened from that one?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, like, I don't want to say I kind of jinxed it, but I had like a weird feeling that night. Like, there's something in the air. I don't know. It was weird. It's like I was watching myself from above, like, the whole time, just kind of seeing what happened. And, we both started off fast. I was throwing long kicks at him. He was throwing some punches, had a couple exchanges. And the biggest thing is I think I kind of went into autopilot mode and I just started fighting. I wasn't cognizant in the moment. And I threw a lazy leg kick, and it just goes to show if you're not paying attention to what you're doing for even a split second, you throw a lazy leg kick and they catch it. That's the end of your night. So, yeah, that was pretty much how it ended for me. Just threw a lazy leg kick and got caught slipping.
It happens, man. It happens. That's the game. That's the game, man. Another memorable fight, bro, I watched was LFA 10. You came in at 6-0 in your career. You were 21 years old. You coming against Zach Riley, and bro, this fight, oh man, I loved watching it, bro. And your grappling exchanges, bro. You got taken down by Zach pretty early on, and you scrambled up to the top. You scrambled to top mount, and then there was one exchange where Zach actually got you in a backpack and tried to choke you, bro, while he was climbing in your back, bro, and you ended up winning this fight. Now, how did you? Do you remember what happened in that fight? You're coming off as a confident kid. You're 21, undefeated, against another hungry guy. How did you feel coming into that fight?
I don't know. Like I don't know if this is kind of like how every fighter is. I assume it kind of is, but like I always have had like this chip on my shoulder where, like when I listen to guys doing interviews and stuff, and I feel like they're not taking me serious, I'm like, all right, like you don't know what's in store. Like I heard Zach Riley saying a lot of interviews where he is kind of overlooking me, and that's like more motivation for me. I feel like everybody's overlooking me, and so yeah, we took that fight against Zach. I didn't really I don't know, I was so young in the game, I guess I didn't really realize who LFA was at the time and how big they were. You know, my friend that was managing me at the time was just like, yeah, we got you a fight with LFA in Colorado. And I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. I was ready to go on a run. And he's like, yeah, it's going to be at 135 though. And so normally I fight at 125. Okay. And my fight before that was also at 135. And I hadn't fought in about 18 months. So I was like, sure, let's keep the ball rolling at 135. You know, it's pretty easy weight cut. And then I saw Zach at the weigh-ins. And I'm like, damn, this is a pretty big dude. That's why I don't fight at 135. And I remember when we were in the back, I saw Zach walking around, and I told my coach, I was like, he's a pretty big dude. And my coach is like, oh, don't worry, he's wearing his gi under his jacket. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, he's got a gi on. That's cool. And then we're standing next to each other when we're getting ready to go out. And I told my coach, I'm like, hey, I don't think he has a gi under his jacket. I think he's a pretty big dude. But, you know, I get like fired up. I was like getting excited and yelling and stuff like that. And once it's time to go out, I just flipped that switch. I didn't care how big he was or anything like that. And yeah, that was a fun fight. I loved that fight. I didn't get nervous with the lights on or anything like that. You know, sometimes I'm a bit of a slow starter. I got to get put in a submission or two, or I got to get punched in the face a couple times, and I kind of wake up. So him being on my back, I think actually kind of like brought out the lion in me, because I'm like, oh no, I got to turn this around and start putting it on him. So if anything, I got more. I mean, I was fighting emotional back then too. You saw I was throwing a lot of strikes from him on my back where I almost put myself in a choke, but that was just the lion in me. I just wanted to turn around and start elbowing him. So once I was able to do that, I got momentum, and I think he could kind of sense like, okay, this kid's on one. Like I could feel him kind of breaking, I guess, in a sense, or kind of like fading as I was gaining momentum.
I mean, when you're in that position, right, bro, and we're talking technically right now, and you're in that position, you have a guy on top, you have a guy on your back, you're not on the ground, you're standing, you're right against the cage in this fight, man. And Zach is basically, he hasn't got both hooks in, I don't think, bro. He had one hook, and I think you were fighting the wrist control. Yeah, bro. What goes through your mind as a fighter, Jerome, when you have a guy big on your back, and do you worry about getting submitted at that point, bro?
Yeah, it's like scary at the time, you know, just knowing that the fight could end at any second, or not knowing if you're going to get punched in the face or if a choke is going to wrap around your neck. And at that time, like, I hadn't lost I didn't know what losing felt like. And in my mind, like getting caught in a submission wasn't an option. Like I was getting out, I was turning around. And, but yeah, you still have that sense of urgency where it's like, I don't know, you kind of have a fear. You don't want to get caught in that choke. Yeah, but then like in other fights, like same thing when I fought Roberto Sanchez, he had me in an armbar, and I had that same mentality, like, you know, I can't get caught in anything, like I'm gonna get out. And he caught me in that armbar, and I was like, felt like I was in disbelief for a second. It was just crazy how fast the fight ended. And when I lost to Brandon, I had that same feeling. I'm just like, wow, it's crazy. Like it really makes you. I had 2 fights in a row where I'm like, if you take your foot off the gas pedal for 1 second, like the fight can be over. So,
And when you lose, bro, because obviously now you're 9-2. You were 6-0 back then, and you started building. When you lose, man, how much willpower, how much positivity and power do you have to have mentally to come back and you know, to get that W again?
it's hard. Losing is definitely a hard feeling, especially when you've never experienced it before. But yeah, I would say you've experienced all kinds of emotions. It's like a grieving process almost. Like sometimes you're like, oh, you know, this is no big deal, I'm gonna get over it right away. And you'll also experience anger. You know, I remember when I first lost to Roberto, I got so mad, I stormed out of the cage and I went and punched the wall after. And looking back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, I was acting really immature, like a kid kind of. And, you know, you got to learn from every lesson. So I remember after I lost to Brandon, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep my composure this time. Like, you know, I went and stood up there, and it was so hard. Like, I remember that was some of the worst pain in my life. Like, just standing next to him and having them raise his hand. Like, when I was fighting Roberto, I had heard a rumor that if I would have beat him, I was going to get signed to the UFC a week later. And so, you know, I had in my mind I should have blown through Roberto, and he beat me. I didn't get signed to the UFC. And then life goes on. Then I start getting ready to fight Brandon. Me and Brandon fight, and I didn't know who Brandon was. I'd seen him fight before. But in my mind, I'm like, you know, I'm going to beat this guy and I'm going to go to the UFC. So for that to happen 2 fights in a row where I had my eyes set on the fight after, and then to lose, it was just like heartbreaking. I remember them raising his hand, and it more than my arm hurting, like my chest just felt numb. Like it was just heartbreak. And yeah, it's, you get tested. You realize fast that the world keeps turning. Like you can't just sit there and mope and be sad. You gotta dig deep and find what got you to that point. Like, you know, I told myself after I hurt my elbow with Brandon, like I'm not gonna quit. Like in my mind, everyone is probably thinking like, oh, he's gonna quit, he's done. And I was kept telling myself that, like, everybody thinks I'm gonna quit, everybody thinks I'm not gonna fight again. So that made me go and push, like, okay, no matter what, like I'm coming back as soon as I can. I'm gonna fight Brandon right away. I'm gonna fight whoever it takes right away. And yeah, I came back pretty fast after that. I got my surgery May 17th, and I had fought again February 20th.
Wow.
So I mean, I had to have at least a 2 or 3 month training camp for that. So it was a fast recovery process. Probably a little too fast because I was just so motivated and hungry.
Yeah, man. I mean, bro. I mean, it's that's what I was saying. You know, it's the mental toughness that you gotta have when you're recovering from an injury, when you're ready to come back. And now, bro, you have your shot at the contender. Yeah, and you're gonna be performing in front of Dana White. You know how big that is, man. And you know, to me, the contender series, it doesn't really measure up to what he was doing with the Ultimate Fighter. To me, bro, if the Ultimate Fighter was the pinnacle of finding the next guy, you know, but I think, bro, you being on the contender, and you're there with half the legacy guys as well, and you're there with Brandon. Of course, you know, bro, that fight with Brandon has got you got to have that mind of revenge on this guy. Like, I'm gonna come back and be in the UFC, and he's gonna still be an LFA. You know, how do you feel, man? Because you're gonna have a chance to showcase your skill. in front of Dana.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that. Like that part's like a dream come true, you know, like I've worked to get to this point my whole career. Like it still almost seems like surreal. Like I can't believe I'm gonna go fight in front of Dana White, and I want to go and bring that excitement to the Contender Series. Like you said, it's trying to stack up against the Ultimate Fighter, and I think me and Brandon have a little interesting rivalry going on, which is good. But also like the fact that I get to fight Brandon, that's just like the icing on the cake. Like, you know, fighting on the Contender Series is enough. That's enough motivation. But the fact that I get to fight Brandon just makes me even a little bit hungrier. Because, you know, it's crazy. It feels like my life is like a movie right now. Like if this was a documentary, if someone would have followed me around with the camera from before I fought Brandon or before I fought Roberto Sanchez, like we'd have a pretty interesting little documentary going on there. There's been a lot of hard work and a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't see. You know, like after I fought Brandon, like the stuff that people don't see, like, you know, I dislocated my elbow and I had to get surgery. So automatically for 2 months, I couldn't do nothing with my right arm. And so what people don't realize is they're like, oh, he's fighting for LFA or he's probably making good money, this and that. Like, you know, we make good enough money to get by and everything, but it doesn't make up for 2 months being completely out of work where I can't use my elbow. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I for a month after surgery, I needed money. So I had my brace on and I was going and finding little oddball jobs. Like there's this thing called Lifelink here in Santa Fe, where pretty much it's like a program where you go and work with just people that don't have jobs, and you go and clean up parks and do stuff like that. And you know, people don't see like all that stuff I had to go through. Like I had a baby on the way. My fiance was 5 months pregnant at the time. I had a baby coming in 4 months, and I just hurt my arm to the point where I couldn't train for 2 months. And in my mind, I was supposed to be getting signed to the UFC and having bigger fights after that. So it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't see, and all that work that goes into it. And that's just so much fuel to the fire. Like I just remember I got back to my job as an electrician 2 months after the surgery. And I remember I was digging with one arm and I was having to do a bunch of stuff, use my drill with one arm and trying to do all this crazy stuff. And like a lot of people were just like looking at me and they're like, there's some people that did see the grind that I was going through. Like, you know, I was there teaching classes a month later with one arm, trying to instruct Muay Thai and teach kids classes and still just go on with regular life. And yeah, you know, I got a lot of motivation going into this, and it's like a dream come true. I'm ready, and I've grown up so much through this sport now. Like win, lose, or draw, I know everything's gonna be okay. Like I'm gonna get better from this. But you know, the fact that we're fighting Brandon, I'm not planning to lose. So going to get that contract.
And I wish you the best of luck, man. And you know, also, bro, with what's going on in the world right now, and the coronavirus and all this sort of thing, and you know, amen to all the people who've lost their loved ones. Well, I wanna just shout at you because how are you locked down over there? Are you in quarantine?
Yeah, we're in quarantine here also. Probably since about the second week of March, we've been in pretty strict quarantine.
Okay. How you been holding up, man? How's the family?
We're all doing good. I work at Home Depot right now. So I've been blessed to have a lot of hours. We're working a lot. People have been doing a lot of home projects, a lot of construction still going on. So I've been lucky to be working a lot. My fiance, she works at a bank, so she's been working a lot. We have a 19-month-old daughter, and she goes with her grandma during the day. So yeah, we've both been lucky to be working during this situation. I know a lot of people out there are out of work, and I just have thoughts and prayers and good vibes out to everybody who doesn't have work right now or who got laid off. You know, all the people working on the front lines, huge prayers and good vibes out to everybody. You know, there's so many like I said, just hard work that goes into a lot of situations like this that people don't realize.
I hear that, man. I hear that. Going back to the sport, bro. I mean, there was something that I read that George St. Pierre said it, bro, in an interview where about the greatest of all time. Yeah, man. In MMA, yeah, but it's so unpredictable. There's over 30 years of history that you could trace back in this, bro. And he said something that now I kind of have an epiphany about is there's not just one great in the sport. Yeah, there are so many. But how do you what's your take on the greatest of all time?
I like that. That's really interesting take on it. Like you said, there's so many greats. Like there's so many unknown greats out there that people probably have never heard of, but they all have their own story. You know, like that's what's so cool when you do podcasts and stuff like this, because you kind of get to hear everybody's story and see, like, you know, like there's a lot of greats out there. Like it's so hard to do what we do. Like there's a lot of people out there that are really technical. There's plenty of guys in the gym that can submit me and that can, maybe if they're kickboxers, they out kickbox me, stuff like that. But to go out there and do what we do, have that courage to go out there and compete, I mean, that's a whole other thing in itself, because once you go out there and you fight, you're fighting back natural urges to, I mean, it's human. I mean, it's nature, the animal in us. We just want to go and fight. We don't want to go and do the techniques that we practice every day. And that's the kind of like addicting feeling of it, is you want to go out there and you want to do what you practice in the gym. And it's so hard to go and do that. And it's beautiful to see it executed when people work and put all this time in the gym and they're able to go out there and execute these techniques. It's so amazing to see. There's so many greats out there. Because I mean, you see guys like John Jones and you see what they go in there and do, and it's like, man, it's crazy. I dream about going and landing all these combos, and I practice them on the bag all the time, and I know all these techniques. I have a lot of submissions in my arsenal. I have a lot of cool kicks. I have a lot of spins, but to go out there and have the courage to throw it and land it and set it up right, like there's a lot of greats out there. But a couple in mind that I really enjoy watching are Demetrius Johnson, John Jones. Yeah, I love those guys. You know, Carlos Conde was another really great one. Yeah, I love watching the greats, and I love studying. Like lately, now that we've all been in quarantine and we can't watch UFC, I've been watching a lot of old school boxing, because I'm like, you know, like I don't really know old school boxing. I'm was born in 1995, so you know, I didn't really get to see the greats like Julio Cesar Chavez and Oscar De La Hoya, and I've been watching these guys, and I'm like, wow, I've really gained a lot of respect for boxing, because I mean, it's freaking tough to go and move your head the way those guys move and execute those combos and get in close and rip the body and angle out. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of greats out there for sure.
Bro, that's a great point you made, because I wish that everyone has had the same point of view that you do, because the thing is, bro, it's so easy for these guys nowadays to come in and do what they do, yeah, and all respect to the fighters right now, it's so tough, and you're in a mosh pit of competition. You have so many promotions out there right now doing their thing. But bro, when you look at new breed fighters, yeah, like yourself, yeah, how, and being Latin American, of course, yeah, how important is it to look at your inspirations, to look at the legends and the pioneers before you, as a fighter growing up? How important is that?
I think it's really, I mean, like I said, I had never really seen any of these guys, and it's so cool to kind of, like you said, like see some heritage, like see where a lot of these Cuban fighters and the culture and just like where you're from, how it really translates over. Like you see a lot of the Cubans are good at hitting that Cuban switch, and you see the Mexican fighters are really good at going to the body. And I think it's really good for young fighters to go and study some of these older legends and just even seeing their mannerisms, like see what they do when they walk out. Like, was he really focused? Was he trying to clown around a little bit and ease the mood? Like, what was his mindset? Like, pick and pull anything you can. Like, you watch Roberto Duran, and that guy just was like a stone wall. He walks out and he was just ready to fight. And like, you know, that may be everybody, like I said, we all have our own journey. Maybe that's what he likes to do, is just go and have that stone cold face. And maybe you're like Connor, you like to talk some shit, or maybe you're like, this is my take on that too. I hate when guys go and like try to like get cocky and like showboat and talk some shit, and it's like all for the show. Like, if you're gonna go, like, there's some real like crazy motherfuckers out there. Like, you look at Conor McGregor, like he's really like just getting crazy. Like, there's some guys out there that just get really emotional, and they like, those are the lions that you don't want to mess with. They mean what they say. And then I feel like there's some guys that kind of do it for the show, and I feel like those guys are more competitors and not fighters. And yeah,
I mean, Renegade, you kind of jumped into my next question here, man, and that's about shit talking. Yeah, I mean, bro. I mean, for me, yeah, shit talking, it's entertaining, bro. Yeah, it's electrifying. But guys come in, yeah, and they talk shit at a press conference, yeah, to get a big fight, to get a bigger fight than they already got, or you know what, they get me a damn title shot, I deserve it, and he's coming off a 2-fight loss. Bro, I mean, how do you agree with shit talk, bro? Do you think that it's necessary in the sport right now?
I don't know. I'm kind of from like that old school UFC era where I like when you had to earn your title shot, you know, like when Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz and all those guys were fighting. Like, you had to earn your title shot. You had to fight your way to it. You couldn't just talk your way there. And my thing is, like, if the shit talking is genuine, like, then maybe I'll shit talk. But, you know, like, I don't like how some of these guys nowadays are just shit talking for the show. Like, if someone's talking shit to me, like, I'm gonna talk shit back and we're gonna fight. Like, I'm not gonna want to see you at the weigh-ins. Like, and that's one thing that's also like an element for some fighters to deal with. Like, maybe some people haven't dealt with the shit talker that's gonna really push them at weigh-ins and get in their face. And some people have to experience that and face that adversity and not let themselves get too emotional and stuff like that. So I don't know, you can use it as mental warfare to your advantage. You can use it to hype up a fight, but myself, you know, I'm not really going to be talking shit unless I have a genuine reason why I don't like you or to talk shit. Like, me and him don't like each other, so I'll talk some shit about Brandon.
I mean, why not, man? Why not? You're gonna meet him in the contender. So, for me, yeah. When you talk, there have been so many legends, bro, that have made it without talking shit. Yeah, bro. GSP and Anderson Silva. You know, nowadays and in the current era, you got Tony Ferguson, Dustin Poirier. Those guys aren't talking shit, right? And they're still considered as some of the greats, you know, bro. Mm-hmm. So I think, like you said, you can sort of use it either way. Yeah, you can sort of say, "Oh, I'm gonna talk shit to this guy because it's gonna get me a better fight," or you can let your talking be done in a ring, in a cage. But I think that's where you kind of see that when Conor McGregor fought Khabib. Yeah, bro, he talked mad shit. He talked so much shit, bro, during that build-up. And Khabib ended up going in there and opening a can on him. I mean, how did you watch that? Did you watch that fight, bro? Did you watch the build-up?
Yeah, I did. That's, like you said, that's a perfect example. Like, if you watch Conor against Jose Aldo, when he was doing the same thing to Jose Aldo, he really pissed him off and got under his skin. And Jose Aldo went out there and fought emotional, charged him right away, and ended up getting caught. And you look at Khabib, and, you know, Khabib's like one of those lions that you don't want to fuck with. Like, if he's talking shit to you, he means it. He's going to go and really try and fuck you up. And yeah, Conor was talking all that shit, and Khabib would, you know, check him if he had to. Like, if Conor is getting like way up in his face, you know, he would kind of do what he had to do, but he didn't let it affect him when it came fight time. He dealt with that adversity, and he just said, you know, I'm going to come here and I don't need to showboat. I'm just going to go and beat you up, and that's my shit talking.
That's real. And the thing is now, but May the 9th, yeah, bro, UFC 249. Yeah, oh man, where do I even fucking start with this? Yeah, it's gone on and off, bro, on and off for the past, I would say for the past good 2 months. Yeah, where you have, UFC 249 is cancelled until further notice, or it's being bought back because I bought they're building a private island for us, an arena in a private island. Yeah. What the fuck is this, man? You Mortal Kombat, Shang Tsung and shit. Yeah. I mean, Renegade for this. Yeah, bro. I want to get your thoughts. Yeah, bro. Because now we have a card. Yeah, and it is badass.
Yeah.
How do you feel, bro? How do you feel about the whole thing? How it's just come together?
I don't know. I'm trying not to get too excited. I don't want the UFC to go and break my heart again. I was so excited about that last card. What was that? April 18th that was supposed to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited for that one. Like, especially when I saw the Ray Borg versus Chito Vera fight, because Ray Borg's a good friend of mine. And I'm just like, damn, I really wanted to see that fight. And I was like, I don't know. I was waiting for it to, I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought it was going to get canceled, and then they announced the fight card. So I was literally, the day it got canceled, like an hour before, I was at the park training with a couple of my teammates, and we were talking about it, and we're like, do you think it's going to get canceled? Do you think so? And we're like, no, it's going to happen. And right when I got back to my car, I saw the notification is canceled. So I'm like, shit. Man. And now, like, you know, I would love to see this next upcoming card, but I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high until I feel like May 1st is going to be like a big date for everybody, where the country kind of starts figuring out here in the United States, like how much longer quarantine is going to go on. Because I believe I've heard a couple of rumors that the travel ban is supposed to get lifted on a lot of the states here on May 1st. But we'll have to see if it actually gets lifted or if it doesn't. I think that's going to dictate a lot of what's going on, especially if the UFC is planning to have fights at that UFC Apex or UFC Fight Island. Who knows what they're going to do. But I love that the UFC is the one sport that has the power to do this. Like, boxing couldn't pull this off. Like, NBA couldn't just go and have like little pickup games, or NFL would never be able to pull this off. So it's pretty cool. I like that Dana White is working hard for the fighters, and hopefully they find a time and place. And if we all just got to kind of train like we have our fights until we get word that we don't.
I mean, bro, that's what I feel the same way. I feel like I have so much respect right now for Dana White. It's because he has really busted his ass to go in there and make this shit happen. And bro, I mean, the first guy to say something, yeah, and I knew he was gonna say it, is Bob Arum. Yeah, bro. I mean, this guy, Bob Arum, bro, and Dana, they don't like each other at all. Yeah, but and when Bob started making a comment, yeah, but I don't know if you saw the tweet that he sent to Dana about the Fight Island. Yeah, but he was talking some mad shit, right? But I mean, but how do you? And then you got Tony Ferguson actually making championship weight, April 18th. I mean, as a fan, yeah, and a fighter, yeah. But how if you were fighting a UFC 249, Yeah, bro. And you said and you saw these cancellations. Yeah, and you were like, "Fuck, am I still gonna get paid?" Yeah. How? What do you, as a fighter and a fan, bro? What's actually going through your head?
Ferguson's a wild man for making 155 still. I thought that was pretty entertaining. But I mean, it's just like such a weird time right now for people to try and be ready for fights because, like all those guys that were going to be fighting on that card April 18th, like a lot of that card got strung together with short notice fighters and stuff like that. And this is just kind of that time where it pays off if you've had short notice fights before. And if you haven't, then that's just adversity you got to go in and learn about. And I mean, at this point, like, who knows if anybody had a competent training camp getting ready for that. Like, they all might have had, like, probably questioning, like, am I in good enough shape for this? Or, but it's just that fighter in everybody that's like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go and fight. And I think pretty much everybody on the UFC roster is probably willing to fight right now. Like, it takes a lot to get to the UFC. There's most of the guys there are pretty gritty, tough fighters. So I think
when we look at the card, Renegade, you see a lot of things, bro. On that, you see that we got 3 championship fights headlining this motherfucker. We got Felicia Spencer, who's a newcomer, bro, to the women's division. But in my opinion, bro, she has no chance in hell of beating Amanda Nunes. Yeah, but I mean, but this is MMA. Yeah, but I've seen Felicia Spencer in 2 fights, bro. She looks good. How do you feel about that one, bro? I mean, Amanda Nunes and Felicia, bro. What's your take?
Amanda Nunes is a beast. It's hard to go against her. But like you said, like, nobody's perfect and nobody's invincible. So you never know. I'd say Amanda's definitely the favorite for sure. But Felicia Spencer shows some good jiu-jitsu so far for sure. I had never really heard too much about her until her last couple fights, and I saw both of those. And I mean, you never know if they get into some grappling exchanges on the ground. She might have a little bit more experience than Amanda. So I think that would be interesting to see. But Amanda's just like a freak of nature physically. And I don't know, she's a tough matchup for males at 135. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, and then you got number 2, Bantamweight Championship. And I want to get your real thoughts on this, bro, because this was scheduled for Sao Paulo, UFC 250. But you had 7 Brazilian fighters pull out of the card. Yeah, bro. And you have a return of, perhaps, in my opinion, one of the pound-for-pound greats, Dominic Cruz. Yeah, bro, against a man who I used to respect. Yeah, bro, and I've lost a bit of respect for him. Yeah, bend the knee, Henry Cejudo. But I mean, what's your thoughts about this one, bro? Because this is a tough one to call.
Yeah, that's gonna be a really tough one to call. Like, first off, like, from a fighter's standpoint, if I was another 135-pound fighter in the UFC, I'd probably be pretty pissed off, just like they all are. Like Aljamain Sterling and a lot of those guys kind of got skipped. And even the fact that he was fighting Jose Aldo, I feel like a lot of guys were pissed off about that in the first place. But from a fan standpoint, Dominic Cruz is also like another one of the guys I think is one of the greatest of all time. And I love watching that guy fight. And Henry Cejudo, he's like a little bull. I've pictured if I had to fight him when he was still the 125-pound champ in UFC, and I was like, I've kind of envisioned game plans, and he's pretty much just like a bull. He's going to run at you and throw some overhands, and he's really strong and heavy-handed, but he's not the most technical guy. So I think Dominic Cruz can definitely put it on him with his movement. I think Dominic Cruz can maybe even surprise him and hit some takedowns, but I think holding Henry Cejudo down is a whole other thing because he's going to scramble and stand up. But I think Dominic can outstrike him, and it's just going to be if he can be the matador and, strike and move and not get taken down. And the other hard thing with Cejudo is that wrestling pedigree is so big. You know, once he starts shooting and even getting you to think about it, then those overhands start opening up, and he looks like a powerful little dude. So
I mean, Jerome, when we talk wrestling, yeah, bro, that could be the real turning point in this one. Yeah, bro, because obviously Cejudo in his last couple of fights, bro, he pounded out Marlon Moraes. Yeah, man, and that was some shit. That was a performance of a lifetime because
yeah,
people were counting him out of that one. With Dominic Cruz, the last time I saw him wrestle, bro, properly was against Cody Garbrandt, and in my opinion, he lost that exchange because when he tried to take Cody down, Cody's a super athletic dude, bro. He's like one of them little balls, rubber balls. And he flipped over D Cruz into position. I mean, could that could that be the difference maker stylistically in this one, bro?
yeah, for sure. I mean, that wrestling that Cejudo has is just so dangerous against anybody. Like, if he can take anybody down and do what he did against Moraes, like, those are some heavy elbows, heavy ground and pound, heavy hips. Like, he's a tough fight for anybody. It's hard. I mean, taking him down is just something you can't really account for, because then, like I said, you take him down, then holding him down is probably a whole other story. That would definitely be his kryptonite, though. If you can take him down on the fence, test his cage wrestling a little bit, and hold him down successfully, I mean, I doubt he has a lot of jiu-jitsu off of his back. So I think that would be a game plan, but taking Cejudo down, that doesn't even sound realistic just talking about it. So that sounds like a tough one. His wrestling definitely is going to be the difference maker. If he can take Dominic Cruz down the way he did Moraes, I think it's going to be a bad night for Dominic. But Dominic can scramble too, though. I think he'll get up, and I don't see him as one of those guys that's going to lay there and take it. So
I mean, then, bro, we have, like you said, bro. I mean, there's a lot of criticism in this one because of you have a stacked bantamweight division. Yeah, bro. And I mean, that bantamweight division is fucking stacked to the edge. Uriah Faber comeback. Yeah, bro. You got Rafael Assunção, Cody trying to come back in the game. Petra Yan. Yeah, bro. You have all these guys. Aljo. Yeah, Aljo Sterling in there, bro. And you got so many guys in that think that, what the fuck is going on?
right, yeah.
Like you said, I mean, and bro, and that moves us on. Yeah, that moves on to the main event. Yeah, bro. Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. I see your face, man. You're excited for this one, bro. I mean, how do you, if you're Tony, bro, and you've been preparing for Khabib this whole time, fight gets called off, but you still make weight and you're still on some superhuman shit. How do you, if you're Tony, how are you feeling, man?
I don't know how that guy's feeling right now. I mean, for me personally, like, I know after you make a weight cut like that, it's just natural that you want to go on a little eating binge after. Like, he had to have rehydrated and tasted that good food again. And I mean, I'm sure he has some pretty strong willpower, but I bet it's going to go from eating bad or eating overindulging for 2 days or 3 days, or maybe he made it a week, and then going back into weight cut mode. I mean, he wrestled in college, so I'm sure it's not going to be that big of a deal for him. But I think he also has in his advantage that he's been in training camp and Gaethje probably hasn't. And I think it's like going to be a really cool example of a fighter that could be possibly overtrained against one that could be slightly undertrained. And so who's going to do better? The guy that might be a little bit exhausted, but he's definitely in good shape, or the guy has the body's feeling good, but maybe his cardio aerobic level isn't where it could be. I don't know. In a situation like that, I kind of want to go for the guy who whose body hasn't been going through hell and didn't have a weight cut. I kind of think Gaethje is going to come out and surprise him.
I think, bro, I mean, Justin Gaethje right now is one of the toughest guys to play the game. Yeah. But bro, he's a big guy. Yeah. He's a big guy, Renegade. He's got to be walking around, I think, 170, 180. Yeah, but and right now, I mean, when he starts to wake up, yeah, but I assume now we're about 3 weeks out. So he's going to be starting to wake up real soon. Yeah, but I mean, this one is it's one of them things, like you said, cardio could go into it because, bro, we're going championship here, man. We're going 5 rounds for the interim belt. It's I mean, I know it will be good to see Justin win this, but for me, bro, if Tony doesn't win, bro, it'll be a disservice to him. Yeah, bro, because he's put in so much fucking work and he's come in and he's put in that effort to prepare for a world championship fight. Yeah, but like you said, man, I mean, Justin Gaethje he's a beast, bro. And do you think that if Dustin Poirier was to take Justin Gaethje's place, yeah, bro, and face Tony, do you think that would be a good matchup, bro?
I think that would be a good matchup. I almost hope for the other way around. I almost wish that Ferguson would not make it to this fight and we see Poirier versus Gaethje, because I know that Khabib and the Tony fight is kind of cursed, but I feel like that fight's going to completely lose its steam if we see Ferguson lose. And if Ferguson wins, like, it's a big gamble, but if Ferguson wins, then that's just going to add even more steam to the fight for sure, because then they're going to say, all right, Ferguson beat Gaethje, he beat all these dudes, he's on this crazy win streak, then he really looks like the interim champ right there. But if Ferguson loses, then who even cares to see the Ferguson and Khabib fight anymore? Because then Gaethje is going to have the belt, and Gaethje and Khabib are going to fight, and who knows, win, lose, or draw, what's going to happen there. They might fight 1 or 2 times, and then Ferguson's going to be doing who knows what else. So I almost kind of, not that I want the card to get canceled or anything, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I would like to see, I don't know. It's hard to not want to see Ferguson versus Gaethje.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, bro, when you look at that, the rest of that card, yeah, it looks like it looks like hell. Yeah, bro. It looks like a bunch of people, yeah, in hell trying to just kill each other. Yeah, but I mean, next up after that, you got Francis Ngannou and Jairzinho Rozenstruik, bro. Yeah, and me and a couple of guys were talking about this. This is King Kong versus fucking Godzilla, bro. Yeah. It is some beast shit. But do you think that it could turn out like Francis versus Derek Lewis? Do you think that it could be something it could be like that?
I hope that it doesn't. I didn't see the Overeem fight versus Rozenstruik, but I heard that was kind of a slower pace fight, right? Yeah. Up until Overeem got tagged.
Yeah. He was patient, yeah, bro, but he was walking him down the whole time.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've never really seen Rozenstruik fight too much, but just hearing that him and Overeem didn't really clash too many times, or that it was kind of a patient type fight, I hope the same thing doesn't play out against him in Ngannou. But I mean, geez, what he did to Overeem's lip, I didn't even see that fight, but I saw the picture of what he did to his lip.
Oh, man, shit.
That looked terrible. So, I mean, I wouldn't doubt that. That's like you said, that's going to be like 2 monsters just colliding. That's going to be I don't know if that can make for a boring fight. Once one of those guys touches each other, they're going to feel it.
Oh, I mean, bro, when you look at the heavyweight division right now, yeah, you look at Stipe and you look at DC. Yeah, bro, they're gonna go for sure. I think 80% confirmed into a trilogy. But I mean, when you look at the first two fights, how do you see a third one going?
I'm going for Stipe to pull through again. I honestly think that Stipe just kind of got tagged in that first fight. And I mean, I don't know what it is, but when I saw him fight Cormier, even the second time, like I feel like Stipe just isn't getting off as much volume against Cormier as he has against some other guys. And I know Cormier has that wrestling and stuff, but I would just like to see like Stipe loosen up a little bit and use the boxing. Like when he fought Dos Santos, those guys threw down, and he was really showcasing that boxing there. So and it seemed like in that last round where he did finish DC, like he kind of got back to that old Stipe where he started letting his hands loose, and he's like, okay, I am almost like a foot taller than this guy. I can keep him back and land and hit him. And yeah, I think he's gonna come back to being the old Stipe and bust out that old school boxing and put it on Cormier again.
I think, bro, now that he's comfortable after the second fight, bro, we saw Stipe get comfortable towards the end because we saw him walk DC down a little bit. Yeah, I think what happened in that fight, bro, is I think you're right. I think Stipe has such good boxing, bro, but I think he was hesitant to use it in that first fight because you kind of have respect for the other guy's talent, right? You respect DC's wrestling. Because, bro, that guy's level changes are crazy. And when you see Stipe in the second fight, you're right, man, because he was throwing it down with JDS. And I think he needs to go back to that old school mentality, for sure. But I mean, as we move down, yeah, one of my favorite fights on this card is Jeremy Stephens and Calvin Kattar. But I mean, this can be a fucking show stealer. Yeah, but I mean, it's not for the weak-hearted, this one, man. I mean, if you have kids, yeah, put them to bed because it's gonna be some shit.
No, yeah, seriously, that's gonna be an awesome fight. I think if people don't know who Calvin Kattar is, which they should by now, but like the people that are kind of like not full UFC fans, like they just hear about the bigger fights and stuff. People need to watch this fight and see who Calvin Kattar is because that guy is sharp. I like watching that guy. I saw him for the first time when he fought Shane Burgos, and I was watching Burgos and I was like, damn, this guy's clean. His technique looks good. And then Calvin Kattar was just in his face the whole time. That guy's boxing skills are really good. He's really sharp. That guy's tough.
And Jeremy Stephens, yeah, bro. I mean, it's not his first rodeo. Yeah, bro. Yeah. But I think we're just starting to see the best Jeremy Stephens right now. Yeah. I think using a lot more variety in the strikes. He's being patient. If you're Jeremy Stephens, yeah, Renegade, and you're saying to yourself, all right, I'm 32, 33 years old right now, yeah, and I'm fighting a young guy, late 20s. How the hell am I feeling coming into this?
Yeah, like you said, Stephens is at that point where he's not going to be fighting for another 5 or 10 years. You don't know how much he has left in him, how his body's feeling and everything like that. But yeah, he's really starting to come to that point, almost like Masvidal has, where he's like really dialed in, and physically he's always in good shape, and technically he's better than he's ever been. Kicks, knees, and elbows are looking good. I think he's gonna come in, and I mean, if he's like going about looking for a game plan, like I think just because knowing that Calvin Kattar boxes so much, I would try and crack those legs, which Stephens is already a beast at. So, I mean, that fight's going to be a war. Stephens is a veteran. It's crazy how long that guy's been in the UFC. I think this is going to be like a make or break fight for him. If he wins this fight in dramatic fashion, people may start talking about him as being a fight away from the title. But if he loses this fight, we might see the decline of Stevens, because he lost his last fight to what's that lanky guy's name?
Shit.
Knocked out the Korean zombie.
Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah. So he lost to Yair, and then Stevens, he's like always a dog. He never has an easy fight. He fought Hinato Moicano a few fights back. Like, he's always up there, but this is definitely like a make or break fight for him, I feel like. And that always brings in a sense of urgency. And I mean, for Calvin Kattar, this is going to be a big test against a veteran that has some heavy hands. So I'm curious. That's going to be a great fight.
That's for sure. Brian, and lastly, the last big fight on it is Donald Cerrone and Anthony Pettis. Yeah, Brian, obviously they fought before. Yeah, Brian, Anthony Pettis was in, oh my God, bro, physically he was in the best shape of his career. Came in and knocked out DC. Yeah, bro. And for me, bro, it was coming into this one, yeah, these are two guys that they are not hated. They are loved, bro. And I think they're two of the biggest OGs in that modern era. Yeah, you look at the OGs from the golden era, these are the two OGs from this era. Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
I think this one's going to be a fucking beautiful fight to watch. In my opinion, Cowboy isn't coming off the best momentum. I think he's only won one fight in his last three. Got knocked out by Gaethje. Got knocked out by Conor McGregor. Yeah. Lost to Leon Edwards. Yeah, bro. I mean, when you look at Anthony Pettis, if I'm Anthony Pettis, I'm not ashamed of being in a war with Tony Ferguson. I'm not ashamed of being in a war with Nate Diaz. I knocked out Stephen Thompson. I submitted Michael Chiesa. I mean, how are you scoring this fight, Renegade?
I don't know. I'm really interested to see this one, because last time I feel like Anthony Pettis kind of had that like shield of invincibility around him. Like, he just mentally was in this place where nobody could really mess with him. And he had that Showtime kick, and he came to the UFC, and I think he lost his first fight to somebody that he should have beat, Clay Guida. Yeah, Clay Guida came and surprised him, put it on him a little bit, and then, I mean, he kind of had a chip on his shoulder, and he just started blowing through guys, knocking out Lozon and Cerrone, and getting to the bell and submitting Ben Henderson. And yeah, I mean, I feel like he had that shield of invincibility. Now I feel like we've kind of seen Pettis break in a couple of fights, where when he fought Poirier and he tapped out when Poirier had him in the mount that one time. And then, I mean, they're definitely not easy positions, but he's facing some adversity. And when he broke his hand in that other fight, like, mentally that's hard, and hard stuff to go through and everything like that. But like I said, we've kind of seen him break in a couple spots now, and maybe that kind of is going to give Cowboy some confidence, like, hey, this guy isn't invincible, and now I'm going to go and put it on this dude, and I got to get back in the win column. So I'm excited to see it. That's a hard one to call, though. I can't really say who's going to win that fight. I don't know. I kind of think Pettis with that, like you said, nobody Pettis has fought lately has been easy, or for Cerrone, but I feel like Pettis has a little bit more momentum and maybe just physically a little bit fresher than Cowboy still.
And I think if you look at Pettis' fights, they've been wars, bro. He hasn't been dominated as much as Cerrone has. Cerrone got dominated by Tony Ferguson. Cerrone got dominated by Leon Edwards. Got dominated by Gaethje. Got knocked out. With Pettis, fight of the night with Dustin Poirier. Yeah, bro. In my opinion, fight of the year with Tony Ferguson. Yeah, bro. Yeah. And Nate Diaz fight was another war, but it showed how good Nate was, or Nate is. Yeah, and I mean, Renegade, it could go either way, man. In my opinion, that is a show stealer right there. Then when we move on, yeah, bro, we talk about we talk about all these fighters. Yeah, bro. They have the early on we talked about heritage. Yeah, bro. Heritage, bro. Obviously being Latin American. Yeah. You are coming from a heritage that is filled with legends, pioneers, and absolute killers. Yeah, bro. In not only in mixed martial arts, but in boxing. Yeah, well, like you said, Roberto Duran, Canelo Alvarez, uh, you know, I mean, all these guys. And MMA, you're coming with a lot of heritage too. Yeah, bro. In your opinion, yeah, bro, we have African fighters taking over. We had the Irish fighters taking over. In your opinion, bro, I mean, with this sort of, I like to call it nation wars. Yeah, bro, you got all these guys trying to come in and make a name for their country, make a name for their heritage. Yeah, bro. I mean, how do you feel? I mean, what? Not even how do you feel? What's your take on heritage and culture in fighting?
I think it's so cool and so interesting to see where the sport is at nowadays, because like you said, like everywhere has just evolved so much. You look at Australia and they have Robert Whitaker and all those guys down there. Megan Anderson's from Australia. She doesn't train down there, but they're starting to accumulate some fighters. And then New Zealand, you got that camp with Volkanovski and Adesanya and all those guys. And you see all these China fighters that are starting to come out now and arise. And that's the thing, like getting to the UFC sometimes it's just about knowing the right people and having the right connections, because there's a lot of killers out there, and the culture behind it is just so awesome. Like it's cool that we can all share one language, and that's like martial arts. Like the other day I was training with a guy from Mexico, and he doesn't speak very choppy English, like has maybe a few words that he knows, and I can't carry on a conversation with him. We talk a lot with our hands and try and figure it out, but we were training drills together, and he doesn't know a whole lot of jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu is kind of like one of my things, and I was able to teach him some moves and kind of walk him through some basics, and it's just cool to see how we can relate through martial arts still and try and find a mutual language where he understands what I'm saying, even though I can't get the words through just the motions and everything like that. And it's also cool to see what every culture brings to the table. Like out there in New Zealand, you're seeing some really high level kickboxing. Same with Australia, and even like the jiu-jitsu game is starting to evolve out there in Australia with Craig Jones and what's his name? Craig Jones's coach. I'm having a brain fart. Lachlan Giles, really good jiu-jitsu. Kit Dale. Yeah, it's very interesting to see, and that was one thing. Like I've had little stints where I've done some training at Greg Jackson's gym, and I always thought, yeah, and like walking in there, it's like going on a world tour. Like I remember the first time I went there, I saw Russians, I saw people from China, I saw coaches from France, I saw everybody and guys from Mongolia, and half the guys couldn't even communicate with me, or we couldn't talk, but we would all show our respects and bow in and get our sparring in. So that's really cool to see how we can all come together through martial arts.
That's for sure. I mean, when you taught martial arts, yeah, bro, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history, and I think when you look at all these different promotions, yeah, bro, and you see now fighters getting paid for it, yeah, for what they do and putting in that work, yeah, bro, and that's another topic, bro, to sort of finish it all off, is pay. Yeah, pay in the sport. Yeah, but I mean, the UFC has been criticized so much for underpaying their fighters. With Bellator, you have a steady pay system there. With the PFL, you have the $1 million cash prize and the belt. With ONE FC, Yeah, bro, you have the Asia's finest, and they're getting paid really well. For you, bro, at Legacy, and if you could give some insight as a 24-year-old guy making it in the sport right now, um, how do you feel at Legacy, bro? How do you get paid? Are you happy uh, with it coming down right, the way it is?
I like Legacy because they take care of me as well as they can. I know that their shows aren't bringing in like millions of dollars like UFC is, for example. But it's really like fight pay can be really bad on the regional scene. Like my first fight that I fought, I got paid $250 to fight and $250 to win. And my second fight was $350 and $350, and my third fight was like $400 and $400. And it's like, if you put that together, on my third fight, I got paid $400 and $400. That's $800, you know. If I worked 40 hours at McDonald's for 2 weeks, I would get $800 or more. I mean, that's where you just got to have that love for the sport. Like my coach always said, you can't do it for the money. You just got to love it. And so, yeah, my pay was very terrible. Like fourth fight, I fought for King of the Cage. Is actually my fifth fight. I fought a co-main event fight against a guy that was supposed to be fighting for the title next. And like I said, co-main event fight, I got paid $500 to fight, $500 to win. And it's like just very low money. Legacy has jumped me up a little bit, but they're still not quite in that Contender Series range or that UFC range. But I know that they do have a pretty nice little contract for me where they try and take care of me as much as they can. But yeah, I mean, I hope that in the future, I know that there's like some fighters unions that some of the guys have tried getting together, but I hope, I mean, I don't know how realistic it is. It may be something in 25 years that the pay starts changing. Like, I feel like that's how bad it is right now. Like I'll probably never see the pay change, but I hope that in 25 years, kids and people that are training are able to see a difference in pay. Because I mean, it's hard. Like I said, when I fought for LFA and I dislocated my elbow, I was out of work for 2 months where I couldn't do anything. And, you know, like UFC or nowhere has any kind of like workers comp, or if you get injured, like, what are you supposed to do? Just like, if I would have been out for 4 months, what would I have done? Just sat there for 4 months and just making nothing. Like, that's where it kind of gets hard. That's where you just got to have a love for it. And, but yeah, hopefully it's something that starts increasing, because they are bringing in a lot of money. But then at the same time, like, there's so many fighters out there in the country, and it's not going to change unless we all kind of almost go on a strike and make a change. Because if you go and call up somebody that's 3-0, 4-0 in the UFC, and you say, hey, I'll pay you 5-5 to fight, will you take it? Like, they're going to take it. That's going to be a lot more than they're making. And $10,000, that's a lot to me. Like, heck yeah, I'd love $10,000. I'm all for that. But most guys on the regional scene aren't getting 10,000. And yeah.
You know what, man? I wish you the best of luck on the Contender. I wish you the best of luck with your lockdown and your quarantine. I wish you the best of luck with your family, bro. I want to thank you so much, man, for being here with us today and talking the nitty gritty of MMA. You know, man, you are one of the biggest, brightest stars I think I've met, with a humble heart, man. Thank you so much, Renegade.
Thank you for having me, sir. I appreciate it. It was great. Thank you for your time. And again, just a huge shout out to everybody on the front lines facing this pandemic right now. And just prayers and good vibes going out to everybody around the world.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that, man. Thank you so much, my bro.
Later, bro. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too, man. Thank you.